Right, the tape is rolling, so whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I'm Katie, and I'm here today with my dad, Andy, Andrea. Just going to have a chat. So, to start off, do you want to tell me a little bit about growing up?
Growing up, I was a child a long time ago. I'd had a mostly happy childhood, I think, with some interesting interludes that were challenging as well.
What do you mean by that? Like,
well, I guess, my father left home a few times when I was growing up as a child, so that was a challenge. And my mum was kind of a person that was prone to kind of difficult to talk to sometimes, I guess. And but it was okay most of the time.
Do you think your dad coming and going, was that on his part or on Grandma's part, or? Mostly
on his part, I think. He found it difficult to kind of... I think he'd had a difficult childhood, but I never knew his parents, and he never talked about them. He never talked about his childhood. It's one of those things that I wish he had have done, really, because there's so many things I'd like to have known about him, and it's just blank.
Yeah. And were Grandma's parents around?
Yeah, her mum was. My grandma, we spent a lot of time, my brother Pete spent a lot of time with her as we grew up, school holidays and things. Her husband had left, they were separated, so we hardly knew my granddad at all, but we saw him occasionally. He was okay, and he was a bit of a, I think he'd been a bit of what they call a ladies' man in his time, so that's partly why my grandma and him had separated. But they didn't have a horrible relationship. If they ever met each other, they kind of would rib each other a lot, but they were okay. Mm-hmm.
And did Grandma and your dad get along when he was around?
They did sometimes, but occasionally they argued. Yeah, there's probably more than occasionally. They argued a lot, and so that was uncomfortable when they did.
Mm-hmm. And you grew up in Grandma's house?
Yeah.
You were there for the whole of your childhood?
Yeah, until I was 18 and became a student, yeah.
Was your dad around until then, or did he?
Off and on, yeah. I mean, most of the time he was at home, but he'd kind of leave for, I guess, several months at a time and then come back again. And he was, when I first became a student, I think for the first 2 years I was at university, he was still at home.
Okay. And then was gone after that?
Yeah, then he left kind of, I suppose, more permanently. Well, I must have been in my second year at university, I think.
Okay. And when did Ned come on the scene? Was that...
Oh, Ned, that would have been round about the same time. I don't think he was the cause of them separating. It's funny, I remember my mum one time kind of... At that time, I'd started going to church and stuff, so my mum was worried about what I'd think about Ned coming on the scene. So that was an interesting time. I was okay with it, really, because I'd seen the difficulties she'd had in life, so it was not... Yeah.
Did you know Ned before he met Grandma?
No, I'd never met him before, I don't think.
And was it quite a sudden change from...
Yeah, he was kind of coming home one time, and there he was. So.
How did you guys get on?
Okay. But, I mean, you'd met Ned, hadn't you? So he was never easy to talk to, I don't think. But he was a nice guy. But it was difficult to have a long conversation with him about anything, really, just because of who he was, I suppose.
So you didn't ever really talk much, just the two of you?
No. I would guess I don't ever remember a time talking with him when my mum or somebody else wasn't there. So I don't really know anything about his family either, which is
strange. Did you see your dad much after he had left?
Yeah. When he moved out, he ended up living in a Salvation Army kind of hostel place. I don't think I ever saw him there, but he used to have a part after he finished working, in cotton mills and things. Because he found it hard to hold down a job, so he'd work sometimes, then stop, and then that will get my mum mad at him, and so he'd leave home, and then eventually they'd miss each other, and he'd come back and get a job, and then there was a kind of cycle. But when he was living in the hostel, he used to work part-time as a barman at pubs sometimes, so if I saw him at all, it would usually be in a pub, or maybe at Pete and Mary's, my brother and sister-in-law's.
Did he go around there quite a lot then? When?
Yeah, he did. He spent quite a bit of time with him. So Paul, your cousin, met him. He doesn't remember a lot of your granddad, but he remembers, I think, as the man that used to give him sweets. And I guess that's how a lot of granddads get remembered, maybe.
Was he about 2 or 3 when he died then?
Yeah, it would have been about that, yeah.
Were you there when he died?
No, I wasn't. I don't think Pete was either. I think he collapsed in the street, and it was a heart problem. So I think he died. They got him to hospital, but he died soon after. And
was that you were living in Windsor by then, or were you still up in Nottingham?
Yes, must have been, because it was just a bit before Sarah was born. Yeah.
And did you came back up or went back up to Manchester? Rochdale.
To Rochdale, for the funeral, yeah. And Pete organised most of that. So.
Did Ian spend much time with your dad?
With my dad? No, not really, because Ian's 10 years younger than I am. So I guess he was about 12 or so when my dad must have left home. So he's only got memories of him, as being quite young. Having said that, I think Ian was the only one that was actually living at home when Ned would have come on the scene. So I think Ian had quite a much more negative view of Ned than either Pete or I, because he's kind of in the middle of the whole thing of my dad leaving home and Ned coming on the scene, and both Pete and I had left home, so I guess we had a more detached view of it, really.
Have you talked to him about it? Or?
To Ian?
Yeah.
No, not really. I don't know Ian anywhere near so much as Pete. It's like, Pete and I sometimes, it's usually if we've been sitting together drinking too much whiskey, I guess. I can remember times when we've talked about stuff and cried together and hugged each other, and I've never done that with Ian. So there's not the same kind of closeness, I don't think.
Do you think that's just because, well, you grew up with Pete and not so much with Ian?
Yeah, I mean, I spent my childhood playing, games with Pete. We get lost together and kind of beat each other up a lot and
beat
stuff.
Ian up.
yeah, beat Ian up together. Yeah, I suppose.
Do you think Ian feels a bit left out of that, or
I think
excluded?
Maybe he does. Pete had a conversation with Pete. It was probably last year, Christmas, where he said that he thought Ian was maybe a bit out on a limb, and maybe we should do something to try and kind of it wasn't get to know him better, but it was kind of feel closer to him.
Yeah.
Which is a challenge, though, I suppose, because living so far away, we don't actually get back there very often, really.
Yeah, it's difficult to do after so many years, I suppose.
It is, yeah. And Ian's he's a frustrating person at times, but I'm sure he finds I'm frustrating as well. So.
Do you think that you will eventually talk to him about cross-dressing?
My view. I think my view of the whole feminine part of me, the transvestitism or whatever you want to call it, is that at the moment it's kind of if people need to know, I make sure that they know. But I think everybody at the moment that really has a need to know. So with Ian, it'll probably be if he asks me. I think he did say last time I saw it, he said something about my girly-looking nails. So perhaps one day he'll say, "Why have you got such girly-looking nails?" And then that's what Pete said when I first said, "Well, do you really want to know this?" And he said, "Yeah." So I told him.
Yeah. And how did he react initially? Was Mary there? Was it just the two of you, or was it?
Yeah, he was a bit gobsmacked, I think is the technical term for that. He was surprised. I suppose he must have had suspicions, though, because otherwise he'd have... if he hadn't had suspicions, he wouldn't have asked about why I had long nails, would he? Mary was surprised as well, maybe a bit more surprised. So,
was she there at the time? Like, did you talk to
was.
Pete just Isaiah?
Yeah, and Matt, their son, he was there, but he wasn't there when we were talking. We went talking in the kitchen, and Matt came in the lounge. So
he joined in.
Yeah, what was interesting was his reaction was a lot different from theirs when we told, because we were in the kitchen talking quietly, kind of, and I said, "Well, Matt's going to wonder what we're talking about." We better tell him. So he came in and he said, "What?" And Pete says, "Tell him." So I said, "I'm a transvestite," and Matt just looked at me and said, "Oh, that's cool." That's it. What's the problem? So,
do you think that's a generation thing, or do you think that's a family thing, like a relationship thing?
I think it's a whole mix of things. I have a feeling that younger people these days, society's maybe not putting so many preconceptions of what people should be like upon people, so they maybe find it less of a challenge to kind of accept differences. But it's not just that, because I know older people that are quite cool with the concept, and other older people that they find it all spooky and they don't want to know or pretend to not know.
Yeah. Do you think that do you find it difficult not having told some people? Like, do you think that is it difficult to keep as a secret?
I don't. No, I suppose I don't feel as I'm keeping it a secret anymore. I think that I see it as being, it's something for people to find out, but not for me to push into their faces.
Yeah.
So I don't feel as, although maybe, but I'm thinking now of Sarah's fiance, Paul, and he, so far as I know, he doesn't know, and I guess we're not telling him. But one day he might find out. It doesn't bother me if you find out. Yeah. Mostly it doesn't bother me who finds out, or say who you tell. Like, do you feel okay telling people? I've never.
Yeah, I do. I mean, if people ask, then, or like, I think a uni friend stayed over and she asked me about your nails, and so I told her, and then, well, there were other people around, so. Like, Gemma once asked about the wig in the bathroom, thinking that, like, Mum had cancer, I think. So he was buying a wig to cover that up. So I said, uni friends were asking where I was coming today. So I wouldn't, just randomly bring it up in a conversation. But if people ask, like, I guess like you.
No, it doesn't bother you?
No, not at all. I didn't.
I've never felt it's really bothered you. I felt you were a bit surprised when I first told you.
I think it was mainly because I guess when we were growing up, you had such an aversion to anything pink or feminine or.
So I like pink now. Is that what you say? Right.
But I guess that kind of makes sense to me now. It makes sense more to me that you had such an aversion for things, perhaps, I don't know, because you didn't want to kind of go there, if that doesn't make sense. I don't know if you think that or not.
I think there's a sense in which there's you go through a period of denying, because I know this a person I did, I think, knew there was something different that I was, and feeling as though it was wrong to feel that way, and maybe there was kind of an overcompensation. Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. But is that something that you consciously thought about, or?
I don't think I did. I think there's a lot of guilt associated with it, but that was tied up with, I think, my own belief systems then, because of the religious view of life I had, the kind of Christian view that it was supposed to be wrong, so you kind of live with this kind of part of yourself that you think it's wrong to be like that, it's sinful to be like that, so you bury it and deny it and don't talk about it, So.
Do you not think it's compatible at all with the religion and being a transvestite?
I think it depends on the view of religion you have, doesn't it? The view I had then, it was incompatible with, but I've met other people that are Christians now that don't have a problem with it, and some quite surprising people as well. People that I thought, well, Ken and Jan, don't you? It was at Ursula's wedding. We were.
Oh yeah.
And because Ken's a fairly high up person with a official religiondom, I suppose, or parts of it, and I was really surprised about his reaction because they asked me why I stopped going to church. So I said, "Do you want to know?" And they said, "Yeah." So we talked about cross-dressing and being a transvestite, and they didn't seem appalled.
No.
I think Ken said something like, "If God's okay with it, so am I." But he didn't say if God was okay with that, I suppose, so I don't know.
But do you think that was the main reason that you lost your faith? Because you stopped going to church when I was about 15, 14?
I'd already stopped going to church before then. Some of that was, I suppose, mine and your mum's relationship has kind of varied over time, because relationships do, don't they? So I think we were going through a difficult time then, and that was challenging, because there are kind of issues there that were getting in the way, I suppose, of church. Having stopped kind of going regularly for a bit, I then started thinking about some other stuff that I believe, I kind of this analysis where I thinking, do I really believe that? It went something like, it was a rationalisation, do I really believe that the vast majority of people that have ever lived are going to go to a place called hell? And I thought, nah, I don't think I do believe that, because I can't kind of get to grips with a God that I can't see the point really of why that would be. And then I suppose a lot of stuff that I'd been prepared to live with, saying, well, the answer to that, God knows the answer, and we don't. All this, why does evil exist and things. And I knew all the answers, kind of, but I decided I couldn't live with those answers anymore, really, because they were a pretense for me. They weren't real.
So the initiator of you, or stopping going to church and stopping your belief, was more coming to a logical conclusion. It wasn't influenced by kind of your own ideas that, some feelings that you were having was not compatible with
I'm sure
religion.
it was both. Cause it'd be nice to say it was just an intellectual decision, I'd sussed it. But it also becomes convenient then, because I think at that point, I sort of having pulled away from the church side of stuff, I'd then, the kind of, I'll phrase it here, the feminine part of me, I think, felt, well, you don't have to hide that. You can be who you want. There's nobody that's going to kind of take your hand and pray over you for healing, because you don't need to be healed. You can be yourself.
And do you think that's when you kind of accepted a feminine side of you? That is about 9 years ago?
Yeah, 2007. In fact, it was the 6th of May 2007, because I was reading it, my blog, and for looking back at something or other, and I think that was the first time. Well, that was the first time that I ever kind of was made up, and in a sense, in a funny kind of way, I see that as almost a birthday, although I only know what the date was because I happened to be looking at it yesterday. If you ask me next week, I'll have forgotten, so I don't celebrate the birthday.
Is that Was that before Mum knew, or after?
Mum knew that I cross-dressed at that point, but I'd not really tried the whole thing of wig and makeup and things.
Did she see you then?
Sorry?
Did she see you when you did?
Did.
When did she see you when?
Yeah, I went to a makeover session and was made over and had pictures, and then the person that organised that said, "Does your wife know?" And I said, "That you're here today." I said, "No." And so Fiona, the person that was in the picture, said, "Well, maybe you could tell her." So I did. Next time, she was away the weekend. When she came back, I did tell her, and she was actually surprisingly okay with it. She wasn't so keen on seeing the photos at first, but she did do in the end. And
do you think your relationship's changed a lot since you told her?
It has, yeah. We're closer together in a funny way. Our belief systems are. That was one of the things that I suppose our kind of beliefs that were one of the things we had in common when we first met, and that they're quite different. Hers are a lot different from what they were, and mine are a lot different from what mine were, and we're a lot different from each other. But we're actually a lot closer because I think in the end we know more about each other. So that makes a big difference.
Do you think it's difficult? Do you think that you really knew each other before, like when you first met, when you got married? Like, do you feel like a different person now, or do you feel like you were the same person? It's just that it was hidden.
I'm the same person, really. I think you just reveal different aspects of your character. I think at different times, don't you? Or I think that's how I see it. I try to, the kind of Andrea and Andy. You could say they're different people, but for me they're not really. However I'm dressed, I'm just me. It might affect my behaviour. The way I behave might be a bit different. Maybe I walk a bit differently when I'm dressed as Andrew than I do when I'm Andy. But I think the things that matter to me are the same. Whoever I am, and it's more like kind of a person being different, maybe when they're at work than at home, than kind of doing some leisure activity. Kind of just different aspects of the same thing.
Do you think people treat you, or people that you know, do you think they treat you differently when you're dressed up, or after you tell them, or? I don't know.
I don't know of anybody that has. I haven't met anybody yet that said, "I don't want to know you anymore because you're a transvestite." I do know people that have experienced that, but no. I don't know if I'm for. Maybe it's just good luck, really. But people I know, that even the people that don't want to talk about it, don't kind of shy away from me, I don't think.
Do you find that difficult, though, if people say, "Yeah, that's fine, but I don't want to know about it"? Would you
I'd prefer it I'd prefer it if Pete could. It's funny, really, about whether or not I'd like to kind of be girly more often than I am. And sometimes I think, yeah, and sometimes I'm not bothered, really. But it'd be nice if Pete and Mary, they've never seen what I look like kind of when I'm dressed, and I think it'd be nice if they, from my perspective anyway, I'd feel as though they knew a part of me, they knew me better than they do.
So do you feel people that haven't seen you dressed up they don't know all of your character?
To some extent, yeah, I think that's true. I think people that know the whole of me know me better than people that only know one part. And in a sense, that the feminine part of me, I think it's a big part of my character and the way I see life. I think it always has been. So yeah, it's a funny thing, really, in a funny way.
Do you see yourself ever going to work dressed up?
Maybe, yeah. In my new job, I could see it because it's only a small office. There are only a few people, and it would depend. I mean, I sometimes you find yourself kind of thinking of ways that it could come about and happen, but it's not. It's not. I suppose it's not really high up on my. It'd be really nice, but it's not causing me hassle.
How do you feel when you're dressed up? Like, what do you get from dressing up as a woman that you don't get from dressing up as a man? Is it like, do you like putting the effort in to make yourself look different, or?
I'm not sure about it. Like, I think most cross-dressers, transvestites that I know, it starts off being a kind of almost a kinky thing. It's a thrill, But I think that maybe for a lot of guys, they dress up in, I don't know. People say statistically quite a high percentage of men have at some point worn lingerie because it turns them on. I think maybe transvestites, it kind of, they discover it's not actually about a sexual turn on. It's about an expression of their character, in a way that's kind of a bit more obvious and open. It's saying there's a part of me that's feminine, and I think it's that. I remember there was a time, that when I first told, or it was more let your mum discover rather than tell her about the whole thing. There was a time when she said, okay, and that was it, and didn't really, and I remember going through my mind sometime round about then, it would be really great if I could come home from work sometime and just put a skirt on and just watch television. And the thought of putting makeup on and the hair and things didn't really come into it then. And I think it was just being able to relax, feeling different. I don't understand the psychology of it really, though. Why? But it doesn't bother me really. I think it's just. It's not that, it's just me, I think. So.
Do you feel like there's always part of you that is a woman or feminine? Or do you have to be dressed up for that to come out?
No, I think that there's always a part of me that's feminine. And I suspect that most guys, I think my view of this is, the main side is that there's maybe male over this side, female over this side, and there are a lot of people that are somewhere in between there. And there are some people that are born and they really feel as though they're on the wrong side of wherever the dividing line is, and so you end up with there's a transsexual perspective of life as well, where people are. They feel as though they're girls trapped in men's bodies, and they kind of need to make a complete transition from male to female. I don't feel that. I feel as though I'm kind of on the male side of female, if that makes any sense. So I'm just me. The nice thing about me being able to dress sometimes is just to be able to, for people to be able to see that there's that as well.
So part of it is having other people kind of observe and understand that you have this feeling inside of you.
Yeah.
Which
what?
You kind of get it.
You kind of.
But I don't know. It's still the feeling that you have to dress up as a woman to express that.
You don't have to. You're right. I think you're right. You don't have. A person doesn't have to. But I think in my mindset of it is it's more of a. For me, it feels more feminine. It's like, I mean, if you haven't taught so many transvestites knowingly as I have, so. But it's funny, we'll occasionally be talking to people. Some transvestites have a real phobia about if they're dressed with makeup and stuff, they wouldn't ever wear jeans or trousers because that's not feminine. You think most of the women I know spend most of their lives in trousers and jeans, and they're quite feminine. Yeah. So I agree. There's some element of, I don't know, maybe it's fetishness or something. I don't think it's an honest perspective of what female is, but it's me expressing femininity in an outward kind of way rather than just from the inside.
Do you think that do a lot of people ask you about your sexuality once you tell them that you're a transvestite? Is that a common first question or first theme? Yeah,
Sarah's first question when I told her was, "Does that mean you like men?" I think I said, "Well, men are okay, but not the way you're thinking." But people do. Some people, I think, they think that transvestites must be gay. And in fact, I think transvestites are either straight, gay, or bisexual, and in the same proportion as non-transvestites are. It's not that's the issue. I think it's more complicated than that, I suppose. But it is a common, I think, a misconception that
they're all transvestites.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's something that you would have explored when you were younger if you didn't have your Christian faith, or did you?
I don't know. I was never tempted from, and I think these days I think temptation's the wrong word for that. Anyway, it's just I think a person's sexuality is part of who they are. I think. I guess people have some kind of control over that as well, just based on their feelings and thoughts and pressures that get put on them. But I don't think I would have felt a need to. It's sorry, going back. You know what you were asking about the dressing. Certainly, you get treated differently. If I'm dressed as a girl, then if I go out somewhere, then people treat you differently. It's like you've not ever been to Pink Punters, have you, with me? You should come sometime. It's a different kind of experience. But the girls there treat transvestites as though they were girls. Yeah. They don't treat them as though they were guys. So you're actually being treated in a feminine way, and that makes a difference. I know quite a lot of people that talk to you think it's so different, because you feel as though you're getting an insight into the feminine mind that you just don't get. It's like having somebody take you by the hand to go to the loo with. Men don't usually do that, whereas girls do all the time. So I'm just going to the lady. Are you coming? I've never said that to a man.
Do you think is that something that you enjoy, having more inclusion?
Yeah, it is. I think it's. Transvestites generally, I think, and I'm guessing it's nice for somebody to treat you like a girl because you've had a whole life where you've been treated like a guy, and it's nice to kind of restore some kind of it's an insane sort of balance to it, isn't it? So.
I see. Do you think that Grandma ever had an inclination that you were hiding a part of yourself, or I don't know whether you felt that you were hiding a part of yourself at that age?
I don't know. I don't think she ever did. I think I remember trying on some of her underwear once when I was a teenager, and Pete catching me. So he teased me somewhat about that for a long time. But I think boys and girls do dress, sometimes. So that and I don't think my mum was aware of it. I don't know if I was really at the time. It's just been something that's kind of maybe it's developed over time. But I guess there was a latent part of me there that was that way, way back then.
Do you think if she was alive still, do you think you would tell her now?
I don't know. I think I would. Yeah, it would be. It would depend a bit, I suppose, on how I thought she was going to react. Because I know somebody in a similar situation whose mother is quite old and frail and doesn't know, and they kind of like to tell her, but they don't want to spoil the relationship between her and them so close to the end of her life, I think. So I don't know for sure. I would like to have if I'd have had a chance. Yeah.
What do you think her reaction would have been?
I don't know. She'd have been a bit surprised, but I think she would have been okay with it, actually. But that's the tricky thing. You can never tell. One of the things I found out about people is that you never quite know people the way you think. You can tell people, and it's like telling you. It was a big. I had no idea how you're going to react, and it was a risk.
Can you talk a little bit more about that, please? I have to say I'm sitting here fascinated by how you told Katie what it was like for both of you, because it must have been incredibly nerve-wracking. I'm making an assumption, but would you mind talking a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can tell you what. See if you remember it the same way as I did. You were home. Sarah already knew her, and Mum knew, but you were home, and we went for a walk in Windsor Great Park, didn't we? And I remember we were walking. I was planning on telling you, but I was a bit worried about it. And I remember it was towards the end of the walk. I think we sat down.
Yeah.
Did we have a cup of coffee? It was near where the coffee place is, anyway. And I remember saying, "I need to tell you something," or something like that. And you said, "What?" And you looked a bit worried. And then I said, I think I said I'm a transvestite, and then you looked relieved. So I remember thinking, I wonder what she thought I was going to say.
I don't remember what I thought. I guess when anyone, I don't know, I think I think you were acting quite strangely, I think. Well, I don't know, there was something, I remember thinking there was definitely something different about, I don't know, it seemed to be a slightly contrived situation, because I don't know where Mum was. I think there was something where it meant that it was, for some reason, just the two of us, and no one else was there. And then I think if anyone sits you down and says, with a worried look on their face, that they need to tell you something, I think automatically you jump to the worst conclusions.
Right. I think looking at, I thought you were thinking. I thought he was going to say they were going to get divorced or something. You thought, it's better. I'd rather have a transvestite dad than divorced parents, but I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think I would have. I think it more, I've got cancer. I'm dying.
Right.
Would be the.
Okay, right.
Would be the be the worst. I don't know if divorce would be the worst thing.
I was only worried about how you might feel. Did you not ever feel this is awful?
No, I don't think so. I think confused maybe, or more because, I don't know, I think my impression of you growing up has always, or had always been, as a very kind of straight and narrow, well,
non-pink
Christian, non-pink, non-dancing, very, well, not very masculine, but very anti-showing a feminine side, if that makes sense. I never thought of you as, a butch kind of rugby player type
right.
masculine man, but never as, I think I always tried to convince Mum to buy you a pink tie or a pink shirt, and she would never let me. Because she knew you would never wear it.
No.
I think I bought you a yellow tie once, and you never wore that either.
Better not.
I think you have done since.
Yes, well, I have. Yeah. I dance now, don't I? So Mum's quite happy about that.
She is.
Can I? We've done about 40 minutes, but I'm keen to keep going for a little while. If that's okay. Can I make a couple of suggestions? Would you mind? I think it's. I haven't said a peep for 40 minutes because it's really, really fascinating, and I've got a million questions of my own which I can't ask. But I wondered, There's just a couple of things I'd be really interested to hear you asking your dad, and there's a few things I'd like to hear you asking your daughter.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
Okay.
And feel free. These are just suggestions. You don't have to ask these. But I think we've covered the kind of family reaction. But I was wondering, I was wondering if you would be interested in asking your dad about if he's ever wondered why he wants to do this. Is there anything, without sort of ending up doing sort of psychobabble, but if there's something, if there's been a cause behind this, if there's a reason for it. These are just things which I'm sitting here thinking, God, I'm interested in that. That was one suggestion. I think the others. I would really like you to ask Katie a few questions as well, if you don't mind. And I think the most the thing that's just come out of that last little bit of chat you've had is I think it's fascinating how accepting you were initially of this. You said you were, and you were quite. It took you a while to get your head around it, but I think it's a very interesting reaction. It must have been very, very frightening for you, presumably.
Yeah.
The prospect of losing, because you could have for a less broad-minded daughter than. But I wondered if it's changed your relationship. That's what I'm interested in. If it's changed the way you view your dad, because by your own admission, he was not at all feminine. If it's changed your perception of your dad, and explore that area a bit. Sorry, I've just thrown a whole load of ideas at you. Does that make sense? So if we could, it's two things really. I'm just wondering if you'd like to ask your dad about the origins of this, and similarly about how your relationship is today as a result of this. Sorry, I'll leave it with you. I'll be quiet.
Okay, right. Go ahead.
Before we go on to that, I guess on the reaction terms, do you think mine and Sarah's reactions were different, and Mum's?
All three of you, similar-ish but different. Mum was really surprised. I think it explained a lot of things in her mind of things. It helped her understand me better, I think. But she found it very difficult to begin with, but she read around a bit and talked to people, and I think decided in the end that, well, that's fine. And she also found that once... I think I became an easier person to get along with once it was out in the open, kind of. Sarah, I think she was fine with it. I think she had more problems at first than you did. I think thinking, is my dad now a girl, kind of, and I think that was difficult for her to begin with. But she's fine about that now, and I suppose I've had the same feelings you've never given me the impression you felt bad about it or embarrassed about it, and you've both told friends and your mum's told friends, and I found that really reassuring, because I think to know that you're capable of telling somebody else gives me the feeling that you're not embarrassed about me being your dad.
You should not. I guess one of the other things that I was trying to get at earlier is whether you feel like there's a reason that you dress up.
No, I did read somebody's blog once that some girl that had said, I'm a transvestite, and unlike anybody else I've ever met, I know why. But you read what he wrote, and he didn't really know. So I don't know why, really. I suppose I believe that it's just me. I'm just kind of not, I'm not a macho man, and I guess I'm not an ultra feminine girl either. But I'm somewhere sort of in between. I suppose it's developed from initially feeling it was just dressing it because it feels like a turn on, to something where, because it was just that for years and years until maybe about 10 years ago, and I started to think it'd be quite nice to have a skirt and a blouse or something, and then that kind of gets harder to hide because you've got more stuff, and I think partly because I wasn't, me and your mum weren't getting on so well. I know it got to a stage where, because letting her know, I just got to a stage where I thought, she needs to know, and I don't know how she'll react, and I hope she'll be okay with it. But it's, carrying on this way is worse still. So the fact that could come out into the open, and she could eventually get her mind around it and accept it. And I think now she kind of enjoys it almost as well as kind of accept it. It's more than just I think. Do you think? Enjoys maybe overstating it. She's comfortable with.
I think it gives you some common ground as well. I think she's exploring her femininity more as well as you are in some ways.
And she keeps stealing my handbag as well.
As do I.
Yes, as you do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely think she does. I think, funnily enough, I think it's, from my perspective, I think it's probably the thing that you and Mum have most in common now.
We dress alike.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think so. Like, I don't know, I've always thought that you're a bit like chalk and cheese, which I think you are.
Right.
But I think you're both exploring kind of
new things, yeah.
Yeah, dressing up and taking care and pride in your appearance and stuff now, then I think it's nice.
Right. Do you feel that I'm a different person than I was? How do you see me then?
I don't know. No, I think you're still my dad. Like, I mean, I don't think I don't see you as more feminine or more like a woman because you're still my dad. Like,
that's fair. Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't see you as like my mum character. I think
no,
to me you're my dad, but I don't know if. I guess you make more sense to me now that I know more about you,
right?
Than previously.
Do you feel that it explains parts of me that you didn't understand before then, or?
Partially, yeah, I think. Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't bother you, no? Do your friends not? Do they kind of think it's weird, or not?
No, I think they're just fascinated. I was talking to my housemates. Was it yesterday or the day before? One of them, Nancy, asked what we were doing and why I had to be here at 9 o'clock in the morning, why I couldn't have a bit more sleep. So I said, "Oh, we're doing this listening project," and then she said, "Oh, so what's your dad done that they have chosen you?" And I said, "Oh, well, my dad's an interesting character." And she's quite prying, so she asked a bit more, and so we had a nice discussion in the kitchen, and I think they started throwing out lots of questions and just, I think, more interested about what and why and how it came about than kind of like, oh, that's a bit weird, leave it alone. So, and I think that's the reaction of most people I've told, I think. Yeah. I think Gemma was a little bit more giggly and hasn't really talked about it since, but I think it's just different characters, isn't it?
I have seen her since, and she doesn't seem to.
Oh, yeah, well, this was years ago. Yeah. This was about 2 years ago, I think. Gemma and Nick.
Right.
Yeah. But I don't think it's anything that she would bring up. Whereas I think other friends of mine, would bring it up if they saw you. I'm sure next time you come around to the flat,
even if I am,
if you come around dressed up, I'm sure Nancy would jump on you and start asking questions. So.
Could I put in another suggestion? My final suggestion. I was just wondering. I think it sounds to me, sitting here listening to you, that I think it's been really fascinating. What I would say. It feels to me like you've asked some questions and you've thought like you haven't. You have asked some questions you haven't asked before, perhaps. I don't know if you would like to ask Andrea about if Katie's found out anything today and vice versa. Because it feels to me like you might have done, but I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, did you learn a lot you didn't know then already about me?
Yeah, I don't think we've, since you've told me, we haven't really sat down and talked a lot about the what, the why. Obviously, I've heard the stories of that, you've talked about before, but not in so much depth. And about your relationship with Mum, and also like your parents. Like, obviously, I knew Grandma fairly well, but I never knew your dad. So I think that's interesting as well.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about how your friends felt, or who you'd told or who you hadn't told. So it's that I find that comforting's the wrong word. It's nice, I think, is the right word. It's good that you can, and you don't feel bothered too much about it at all.
It's nice to know that you don't mind me telling people, or at least I hope you don't.
No, not at all. No. It's unfair, I think, to tell people something and then say, but you're not allowed to tell anybody else. I mean, there are some things maybe, but that's not one of them. You've got to make your own judgment on that, haven't you? It's
Is there anything else you'd like to say to each other then, just to wrap things up? We've recorded 50 minutes, but if there's anything else you'd like to say or talk about?
I'm sure there's lots of things, but probably not as a wrap up, more as another initiator. So.
I guess I'd like to say how, I suppose, chuffed, proud that you're a cool and accepting of stuff. That you're an open-minded sort of person that doesn't get too flustered about people's peculiarities, I guess, and that I think I'm glad that however it was that I used to be didn't kind of squeeze you into a mould that meant that you thought that you should never buy a pink tie for a guy. That's something else.
No.
So
I obviously had a good upbringing.
Fun?
I obviously had a good upbringing.
Yeah.